is AJ, and I am your host. At the core of Christian nationalism is this idea that America is a Christian nation, or the claim, rather, that the founding fathers were Christian. Now, even if this was true and that was the case, and they were Christians, it doesn't really change the fact that from the moment they began to draft the Constitution, as outlined in the very first amendment, they stated their desire for a secular society. Case in point, the Establishment Clause, which is part of the First Amendment. It states that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. This prevents the government from endorsing a specific religion or playing favorites and selecting one to be, the chosen one. But with the rise of Christian nationalism, we are seeing an increase in legislations being shaped by biblical doctrine. Texas, which is where I live, often follows in the footsteps of Oklahoma when it comes to blurring the lines of church and state. Now, as soon as Oklahoma passes any Christian based legislation, from anything from public education, LGBTQ people issues, to all the way to abortion, Texas will follow. You know it will be next. So, in the last few months, actually over the last whole year, more like it, we have had several new legislations approved in Texas, and there are more on the way. There are some that we are watching, and we are waiting for Texas conservative lawmakers to hear about them and go, hey, let's go do that one too, and take that minorities' rights away next. So if you're somebody who thinks that religion should help shape America's laws, or you agree with religion in public schools, or you think that America is a Christian nation, and you're okay with taking away rights of minorities, women's bodily autonomy, or the rights to abortion, then talk to us. Dial 984-400-5656 or use the link that you're going to find below from my computer, because this is Critical Call. Hey, hey, Will, how are you doing? Welcome to
Hey,
the show.
good
You having
evening.
a good day?
Yeah, today's been all right, except for my allergies are really, really kicking. They're really
Oh
kicking.
no, yeah, I feel you on that one. I've been sneezing all day. I had to take something before the show. I've been wanting to sit down and have a chat with you, for a while now to lock you down for a show. But today it seemed like the world was trying to get in the way of that. Like my power went out like 2 hours before the show, and I was determined. So I found a laptop that was charged, and we lit up a candle. Then we found a flashlight and we put it right in front of me. We set up like everything that we could. Like I connected my regular camera and everything. And then like 30 minutes before, the power came back on. I was like, all right, all right. It was a miracle, a miracle. You know how that goes.
I know how it goes. Miracles are a thing.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. So, for anybody that doesn't know you, you gave me a little introduction, and I'm gonna read it real quick for people because I don't remember all of it, and you have such a great background. That's exactly why I wanted to have you on the show, because you have so much knowledge about this topic of Christian nationalism and all of this terrible legislation that we're seeing. So, anyways, I'm going to formally introduce you to our guest. So, you are Dr. Wil Jeudy, and you are an urgent care physician by day and secular activist the rest of the time. You are also the state director here in Texas for American Atheists, and you are the chair of American Atheists Secular Advocacy Team. You are on the advisory board of the Center for Free Thought Equality. You are also the founder of Secular Houston, which is where we both stay. And um, Secular Houston organizes sort of the secular voice, political voices in the greater Houston area. You endorse candidates that align with secular values, and you teach constituents how and where to direct their energy to effect change. And as the chair of the American Atheists Texas Secular Advocacy Team, you have lobbied for issues at the state level and written testimonies for and against bills during legislative sessions. So I wanted to ask you about that last little bit. Like, what do you do exactly when you go and advocate or write testimonies for or against specific bills? Because I feel like that's something people could do. That's something people like an average person, like you don't have to be an expert to do that, right?
You do not. You just have to be. You have to give a. Can I say bad words on this show?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah,
Give a
we're good.
shit.
Okay.
All right. If you give a shit and want to change all this, that's where someone like me comes in. And it's not just me. I mean, there's plenty of organizations that do this, but yeah, we can teach people how to effectively channel your rage, your energy to affect change. And I call it, we stick to our lane. Our lane is church state separation and all the good that comes with it. And so we do our best to stick to it. And as the word gets out, we care about the society here in Texas. We want to change it for the better. And but I kind of add a layer of, hey, you can make things better, and you're advocating for church state separation, and you're normalizing non-belief. So it's just more incentive for people to get off the couch and start doing something. So yeah, the Texas legislature gets together every 2 years. It's a weird thing, but in between March and June, it's a frenetic, very chaotic, frenetic time. They're passing all these bills, and it's pretty intense. But that's the time when we track bad bills and good bills actually. So we'll advocate, we'll support the good bills, which aren't too many here in Texas, but we'll push back on the bad ones. And we physically, and I say we, it's not just me. I assembled a team last year in February, about a year ago, to go to Austin, and that was our first kind of secular lobby day in a while. They had existed about 10, 12 years ago, but nothing lately. But yeah, we would visit certain offices. It was all coordinated, and we advocated for good bills and pushed back on bad bills. So everyone in Texas, I would recommend looking up who your state rep is and your state senator. And when bad bills come through, again, if you're plugged in to organizations like ours, then you'll know, oh, this Ten Commandments bill, that sucks.
Oh,
And that it doesn't have to stop there. The next step is, you know what? I'm gonna call my state rep because they need to hear about this. And even if your state rep is an asshole, if they're just a straight up Christian nationalist, they are totally opposite of you, it is still worth calling because they will know your opinion. As a constituent, your weight, your opinion has, I'm sorry, your opinion has weight to them, even if they're opposite of what you believe. So it's still worth calling. It takes a while to learn this. It's kind of a skill, but that's kind of where orgs
oh
are.
yeah. I mean, there's this group. I don't know if you're involved with them at all, but I've seen this group go to either Cornyn's office or Ted Cruz's office weekly. Sometimes they go daily during the times where it's not, super hot or super cold. They go there every day. It may be 10 people, it might be 5 people. Sometimes it's like much larger groups, and they
Yeah,
just sit there and protest and protest and protest,
they're great.
and they
They've been
ask
doing it
people
for
to
years.
call. Yeah. So it's
And
like
you'll,
that's something
you'll,
anyone can do that.
yeah, they do. They go every Tuesday morning, and they just kind of pick it outside of Cornyn's office, and they've been doing that for years. Neil Aquino is a friend of mine. He's been doing a great job with that.
Oh yeah, yeah, I know him. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I've seen him around. He's in Galveston too. He does a lot of stuff up there. So yeah, so I mean that's something anybody can do, right? You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be of or against a specific party. If you disagree or even if you agree with a lot of their policies that that candidate is supporting, but there is a specific one that you don't agree with, then you can give them a call and be like, hey, I support you and everything else, but this one I don't. So can you, what can you do about it? And yeah, that's the way that we can affect some type of change, or at least feel like we are affecting some kind of change. So that leads me to ask you, like, how long ago did you start Secular Houston, and like how did you go about it?
Yeah, my group Secular Houston, I formed it in late 2021. It had been bouncing around in my head for a year and a half before that. Again, just kind of listening to podcasts and being inspired by people back then saying, "Hey, people should run for office or at least get involved." So there was not a voice to advocate for church-state separation in the political realm here in Houston. So yeah, I decided to make it, and we send out questionnaires to everybody running, Republican, Democrat. We're officially nonpartisan, and the candidates that return our questionnaire, we have a little committee, and we'll look at the answers and see if they're worth our endorsement, and then voila, we have an endorsement list, and we tell everyone that will listen, hey, we did the work. These people align with our values. Uh, Fucking help these people get elected. And how can you do that? Great. I'm glad you asked. Here's a whole list of things you can do, from easy to hard. So we try to educate people and teach them how to focus that energy.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And so you did it all of these years as an just an organization, just something online, right? It wasn't still any kind of registered organization.
That's right. We're nothing. We're just a group. We're not registered with the state. We're not a
That's
C3
cool.
or a C4. But yeah, every year, every election, we get more and more inertia, and we are a thing now in Houston. Candidates will reach out to us. Hey, what's your endorsement process? Hey, I'm interested in this. So I was told when I first made this group that the word secular or being, it's not quite a non-belief group, but that the baggage that comes with the name it's not going to be as bad as I thought it would be. So people would tell me that. I thought, well, Texas is Texas. Let's see what happens. And yeah, sure enough, it's been a lot
That's true. It is.
harder than I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a lot harder in red states to get conservatives to sort of be okay with with the word secular, or even especially with non-belief. But yeah, I do feel like secular is a little bit less has a little bit less stigma, because it simply means don't mix up church and state. It doesn't mean don't believe. You can be secular and be a believer, right?
Right. Yeah. I chose secular because it has the least amount of baggage, but it's
Mhm.
also what we're trying to do. I really need to be in the habit of saying we're advocating for a secular government, and like italicize that with my voice, secular government, because that's really what we want, is separation of church and state in government, not in your house, not in your church, not in the public sphere. But if the state is using their power to enforce one version of religion, in this case Christianity, that's Christian nationalism, and that's exactly what we push back on.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So now you're doing it as officially as a pack, correct? And that was
So
this year.
yeah, I've always avoided money because it kind of messes things up. I just thought that the combination of politics and money has always been icky. But as I learned more about Christian nationalism, they have a mountain of money that they enjoy, and they use it. And at a certain point, I realized, you know what? I think it's time that we deal with money, because yeah, it's great if we endorse candidates and we kind of help these candidates get elected. But if we can put some money behind it, that that gives our efforts, our voice, more weight. And again, I still don't like it, but this is the game that is played. And yeah, so secular, I formed a whole separate entity called Secular Texas PAC, and we're a state PAC. We're not the gross corporate or super PACs. So we stay within the state, and this is our PAC. This is our money. This is our machine to help our endorsed candidates get elected, and again, give our voice more weight. And once, listen, if the world ends up the way I want it to be, or at least Texas in the future, and money is removed from politics or greatly reduced, I would be happy to dissolve this pack. Yes, I can't wait for that day.
I
But
know, like, there's a lot of stuff that we don't agree with, right? Like the electoral college. A lot of people are like, well, abolish the electoral college, but it's like, it is what we have right now. And until that's not the case anymore, we have to play by that rule. And it is the same with the money. It's kind of like, we can compare it to secular groups outside of politics, right? Like Houston Oasis, okay? Like where people come on Sundays and they get together and they do music and they do potlucks and they, get together and do their community thing. And it is a similar thing what they have at church. And the difference is that churches have so much more funding and they can do so much more, whereas secular groups are often sort of like more grassroots and community driven, like community funded. Like you don't have as big of a funding as the church does. And so, yeah, I feel like it is a similar way with what you're trying to do. And it's like you can only get so far without that status of, of having a pack or being able to bring in some funding so you can travel and, do more to oppose certain bills or be able to donate to
right,
certain candidates or, support their whatever they're trying to do in order to get elected. So yeah, it's unfortunate. We may not like it, but it is what we have to do, sadly. So at this point, so yeah,
and
I'm
when I
glad that there's a yeah. Sorry,
I'm
go
trying
ahead.
to I'm trying to fix that. Again, my whole thing is I want to do something about all this stuff. So this is part me trying to do something. So our vision, I say our because we have a board now for Secular Texas PAC. Our vision is to have we have Secular Houston now, which is I guess we can call it an affiliate. I want there to be a Secular DFW, Secular Austin, Secular San Antonio, and they have their own crew that does an endorsement list, and we get the monies that we get from across the state, even across the nation, are going to go to those candidates that they endorse. So that's the vision as of now, and and we're working on it. And I'm excited.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's sort of like a format or a type of project that other cities can, follow as well and be like, oh, hey, look what they're doing over there. That seems to be working. Let's apply this to our city. And yeah, the more cities are doing this, the better, because then, despite the fact that we are in a completely red state, you have a lot of cities like Houston and Austin and San Antonio that are a lot more blue than people realize. So yeah, but you're also part of, you say, the free thought equality. What do they do?
Yeah, I'm excited. The Center for Free Thought Equality is like a national version of what Secular Houston does. So when I formed Secular Houston, it's like it was a more local version of CFE. I'm going to call it Center for Free Thought Equality. I want to be Ron Millar when I grow up. He is the leader of the Center for Free Thought Equality, CFE. So yeah, on a national level, at federal and state, they endorse candidates again based on church-state separation. What we just talked about, they do that, but on a national level, and they rub elbows with U.S. State reps. I'm sorry, U.S. reps at the federal level. They're very involved with the Congressional Free Thought Caucus at the U.S. level, and caucus is just a group of representatives that get together and with a common purpose. So there's a Black caucus, there's a LGBTQ caucus. You can do that at the state and federal level. But at the federal level, again, there's a free thought caucus that gets together for religious freedom, advocating for church-state separation, everything we just talked about. So Congressional Free Thought Caucus, look it up. And if you have, maybe ask your U.S. House of Representatives rep to join that. And it's been getting momentum. It has more members now than the Freedom Caucus, which I loved. I loved hearing.
Oh yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I've seen that there's more and more members being added to the Freedom Caucus. Yeah, like this year there were at least like three or so that I saw. I mean, we're just 2 months into the year, so that was pretty good news. That's
Yeah,
pretty good
and that
news.
normalizes secular government for separation of church and state. We need it now more than ever. With the 250-year anniversary of the U.S. coming up, there's going to be so much bullshit about
Oh
this is
yeah.
the nation, the founding fathers, blah blah blah. It's gonna be bad.
Oh yeah, you're gonna be seeing that all over the media. And speaking of that, like here in Texas, we are seeing that whole um, uprise in attempting to put religion into everything they can. And public schools has been one of the top things they've been trying to push religion into. So what are some of the most blatant violations of the Constitution that we've seen in Texas? Like, sort of like blurring these lines of separation between church and state. Let's talk about some of the recent legislations they've passed.
Yeah, the
What's
easy
the
one
most
is
important?
SB 10, which is the Ten Commandments bill. Again, this was passed during the legislative session last year. It's every 2 years, so the last time they were in session was um, spring of last year. So little under a year, little over about a year ago. So yeah, we pushed back hard on that, and there was a lot of people doing the same statewide, but it did pass, and it became law. So it says that the Ten Commandments, their version of the Ten Commandments, which
Oh
again
yeah.
there are multiple versions. They picked one from a movie or something. I mean, it's it's ridiculous.
Did
But
they would? Oh, I thought they would have picked the King James version or something.
they picked it from the movie with Charlton Heston and all that stuff.
Oh wow.
I don't have a good word for that, but they said it must be put in a visible place in all the classrooms if if this the Ten Commandments, the pre-approved version, is donated to the school, it must be put up in the classrooms. So when I first heard that, I was like, yeah, they have a whole big warehouse of these pre-printed
Oh,
signs already
you bet.
made because they enjoy a mountain of money. They get to do this stuff. So this is my plan. And they get to do this shit because they are overrepresented in the state legislature. So they get to bulldoze past any good reps that are trying to push back. And there are plenty of them. I know them personally, but they're just not enough. And what I want to do is help elect more of them to stop this shit.
Yeah, and you know that organizations like the Heritage Foundation, who are behind all of these pushes for this legislation, they got so much money. They were probably the ones that already had all these warehouses filled with with all the signs ready to go the day that it was passed, right? But I've seen a lot of pushback too from school districts themselves. They're like, we don't want to do this. And then there goes Greg Abbott, and it's like, no, you got to do it. And then the schools try to push back, and then they try to bring in the court and the ACLU, and it's like,
Yeah.
it's been messy, but I'm glad to see that there are organizations and individuals and school districts that are actually saying, no, we don't want this to happen. Like, yeah, we're religious in our homes, but in the school, no, that's not cool. Because this is it's ridiculous for kids who are non-religious, who are Muslims, Hindus, who are any other religion, right? And they have to go and see the Ten Commandments there. uh, this isn't about freedom of religion. It's about freedom to be a Christian, pretty much Christian nation, more so.
Which we are not, as we all know. And yeah, there's a ton of pushback on this. And yeah, ACLU, Texas Freedom Network, the Interfaith Alliance. We're proud of the coalitions that we formed along with American Atheists, American Humanist Association. There's a lot of coalitions that are pushing back. The thing is, again, they're overrepresented in the legislature here in Texas. And I really think they're rearing for a fight to get this up in front of the Supreme Court because they think it's the environment is favorable for them now. We'll see.
Yeah, I feel like like I said earlier, right, at the beginning of the show, Texas often follows Oklahoma. Oklahoma seems to be the top, and then Texas is like, oh, let's do that too. And I know that there are other states that are also doing the same thing. You know, they follow the footsteps of Texas or of Oklahoma. And oh, sorry, I missed that thing. I don't know what to say. But anyways, yeah, but there's something that people can do as individuals, even if you're not part of a large organization that is pushing back on all of these legislations that have already passed or that they're trying to pass. And that is, if you have kids in school, and even if you don't have kids in school, normally you can still vote for your school district representatives or whatever they are, the people that are going to be on the boards and stuff. And so I remember when last year was my very first time ever voting, and I just become a citizen. And there was really nothing big on our ballot because we're so far outside of Houston, and pretty much all we had was like board members for school to vote on. And so I had to go and check out and be like, oh, hey, who's trying to push back on this and who's not trying to push back on that, to make sure I wasn't voting for somebody that was going to be trying to push the Ten Commandments, or that wasn't going to push back on the Ten Commandments in this uh, in our district specifically. We homeschool, so we don't get exposed to that level of of problematic policy, but it's still something that matters to me because I have tons of friends who have kids in school. And I just because my kid is not in school doesn't mean I want all other kids to have to be subjected to that. So anyways, we have a color. Okay, so if the crew is ready, um there is a caller, Melissa, no pronouns given, from New York, who is a Christian and says that the Bible already does shape U.S. law. So let's see where the conversation is gonna take us. Melissa, can you hear us? Okay, maybe that was. Hey, can you hear us now? Oh, oh, hi, cool. Okay, we can hear you now. How are you doing? Oh, good, thank you. So, what did you want to talk about? You said that the Bible already shapes U.S. law. Did you have what kind of other comments did you have on that?
The British British common law is like what our most of our laws are based on, and that's a lot of that's heavily inspired by the Bible and the Constitution. Um, a lot of that's also inspired by the Bible. Like the book that was most quoted when the Bible was being written by the founders was Deuteronomy. And just like if you think about it, like basic things like equality, um, there's no like objective, there's no way you can if you go from a theological standpoint, there's no real way to believe in equality unless you were to believe it's an objective truth that all humans are made in the image of God. And there's like a speech from like the peasants revolt in like the 1300s or the 1200s, I believe, that this idea of equality originally came from, and he specifically quotes Adam and Eve when he gave this speech, and that was like the first time that like equality was cast in this kind of legal framework where like everyone's equal, should be equal legally, because Adam and Eve, that's how God created us, to all be equal. There's no hierarchy back then.
But is that actually the case, though? Do you feel like the law currently gives everybody equality, women,
Well,
LGBTQ
I mean,
people?
Well, the idea of equality in our Constitution is that life having equal value, not necessarily that everyone is the same or that all outcomes will be the same, but that everyone has equal value. So, meaning like we all have like rights and protections, right? And those rights also, a lot of those rights, like right to property, that also comes from the Bible. Like, God gives mankind the earth to inherit, and He assigns different plots of land to different families and tribes. That's where like the idea of private property comes from. Things like this. So the idea of equality within like our framework isn't necessarily about outcomes, but more about like basic protections that respect the dignity, like saying like life has inherent value, and because of that you can't deprive people of life, you can't treat people differently based on the way they look. So it's not necessarily equal outcomes. It's a basic standard of that says like we all have an equal worth. So because of like all human life has an equal value morally, that there are things that you can't do to target certain people that would deprive them of their intrinsic human dignity or value.
So, do you think that currently, as the laws stand, that they are meeting those sort of biblical values of giving everyone the same value, even if it isn't, the same outcome as you mentioned? Do you think it's currently like it's good because
Yeah, I do. I mean, I can't think of anyone. I mean, I think especially now, like, I think I can't think of anyone who is deprived of anything. I think like some of the like the attempt to like to fix things in the past when we used to deprive people of rights because of their skin color. I think the attempt to fix that kind of went overboard a little bit. So we could technically say that in some ways, the majority is kind of in the attempt to like with affirmative action, all that kind of stuff, we kind of overdid it a little bit. So I think you could say technically that we went overboard a little bit and started to kind of try to hand out things according to, the way we perceive like people were treated in the past. So I guess you could say we're not so good at it now, but I mean, other than that, I really can't think of any way that people are generally mistreated through the law.
I can think of two. Well, we probably don't want to go down the abortion path, but let's go to one that happened just today. Let me give you an example of something that happened just today. Came out in the news, and I can't think of what state it was. I think it might have been Kansas, but I could be wrong. Somebody in the chat could correct me. But there was a state that decided to take away all the IDs of trans people who had their gender, um, the gender marker changed in their birth certificate or their IDs. I'm sorry, in their birth certificate, which they then used to get an ID. And so now they're all having their IDs taken away, which is something any citizen should have a right to, shouldn't they?
I mean, I don't have a right to. I think that's another thing. Like, I think we kind of confuse. That's not really a right. Like, I don't have a right to go and say I feel like I'm white today because I'm not white. So like I'm insisting on, like I feel like I'm a white person, and because of that, my ID should reflect that. I think that's kind of a special thing, and we've never assigned any kind of identification based on feelings or emotional state. So I think that's kind of an unequal thing where we granted certain privileges to people because of how they feel. I don't no one else really has that right. There's never been a right to, there's never been a right to an identification based on how you feel, or to be judged by the state as like, if you're like underage and you say, I feel like I'm older. There's never been that kind of, that's not like really a right. That's more of a privilege. And it's not assigned to everyone. It's not equally. It's just given to some people because of the way some therapists think that this particular mental illness is assigned, but it's not like.
Whoa. Hold on. Let's not do that thing. Are you?
What?
You're not saying that trans people are mentally ill, are you?
I mean, it's always been considered a mental illness, and I'm not saying that's bad. I mean, I used to have. I mean, people like, I remember when I was growing up and I had like body dysmorphia. I'm not saying it's the same thing, but I understand how it can manifest as like,
But it has been removed for a reason, because we now have a better understanding that it is not a mental illness or a mental condition.
I mean, I'm not gonna like fight, I'm not gonna argue on this, but from like, I've done a lot of research. I don't think we necessarily have a better understanding. I think that the doctors just changed the way that they
well, you're in luck, because we have a doctor right now here. Will is a doctor.
Okay.
The doctor's what?
I guess it doesn't really matter. But the point is, I was saying, I don't think that's a right. Like, I don't think that's like, that would be like saying like, if people with body dysmorphia and I was anorexic, I would have a right to have that perception of me, like of how I felt about myself, validated, affirmed by the state. You know what I mean?
Okay, so if you had, let's say you have, I don't know, let me think real quick. OCD. Let's say you have OCD, and it's not being treated currently. Does that mean that the state will have the right to take away your something that you have the right to have, like an ID, just because you have? I don't think that being trans is a mental health condition, but since you do, I'm trying to compare the two. Like, you're saying that it is okay for the state to take away their ID, which is a legal right that they have, a constitutional right, that it's okay for them to have it violated because they have a condition.
I think what you said was that the ideas with the different kind of with the different sex or different identification is what was being changed, not that they no longer had a right to have an identification. Is that correct?
It's so pretty much it.
Identification that everyone else has now, like that everyone always has, correct?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter what the reason is. They're having their IDs taken away, and they're not gonna return them until they do whatever they're forced to do. Now, the change in the birth certificate.
Kind of ID. There's no right to an ID that validates how you feel. I mean, that's just not a right. You know what I mean? That's never been a right. That's something that some states did. It's never been like a universal thing that we all agreed on would be like a basic human right.
Okay.
I mean, you can say that you think it should be. I mean,
but a moment ago, you said that you've done your research and that you trust what the doctors are saying. Did I understand that correctly?
I don't really necessarily trust doctors on. I mean, I don't necessarily trust doctors on this kind of stuff, because I think mental illness is. I think that, well, not mental illness. Let's say, I think anything that's involving like psychiatric, or anything that involves a mental or a perception. We'll say that this is like heavily involved into like a person's feelings and their perception of reality. I don't know how
But
how
it isn't really. It isn't just their
decision
perception.
about that.
See, when a doctor gives, so you trust doctors to give a baby, to assign a baby a biological sex. Do you trust them to do that?
I mean, because that's pretty easy. You just like look. I mean, that's what I'm saying. But the reason I don't necessarily just blindly trust doctors on this is because I don't think you can trust like it's not objective. It's not like there's no like objective standard for this kind of dealing with something, an internal thing, right? An internal experience.
No. We're talking about a baby. We're talking about a baby. A doctor assigning
Yeah.
as a baby a gender
Yeah.
based on their genitals
There's an
looks.
objective standard that can be either affirmed or, you know what I mean? There's an objective standard when it comes to sex.
Okay.
It's
All right.
like, you know what I mean? There's no objective standard.
What?
So like,
no, but what if
like,
what if their genitals don't match their chromosomes? What happens there?
are you talking about intersex?
I
mean,
am.
that's not what we're talking about here. That's not transgender or trans. I don't know the correct.
How do you know though? Do you think that every single transgender person has had their chromosomes tested?
I know that this isn't related to chromosome, because if it was, then it wouldn't be a self-identification thing. It would be related to self-ID.
Well, but it is based on, okay. When you're talking about
like hormonal changes, if it was based, you know, like, I mean, that would be publicized and well known if that was the case.
Well,
it's not.
let me give you an example. I'm not trans. Okay, I was assigned female at birth because I have the body parts on the outside that look female. Now I know that my chromosomes are what would be assigned as a female, right? Because I have had them tested because of completely different things. But my hormones are all over the place. I have a lot of levels of hormones that are not the regular for what somebody will consider a female. So I don't think I am intersex either, but I don't feel very feminine. And I do think it has a lot to do with my hormones. So what would I do in order to match this sort of criteria of being considered a woman or feminine or a female?
You already do, because you have the body parts of a female. I mean, the levels of hormones isn't, because like people's hormones fluctuate throughout their life all the time, men and women. I mean, your hormones
but they affect your body.
There's no
they
like,
affect your body and your brain.
Don't really determine that, because the hormone levels fluctuate throughout life. They're not like standards, you know.
They do have normal ranges. They do.
Yeah, they do. They do. I mean, even if like, you know, like part of like hormones is that they fluctuate, like, and it's never been like you know, like I had issues with my hormones, and it had nothing. I mean, it's not necessarily, that's just kind of part of you know, bodies just do that. It's like doesn't change if your hormones, if all my estrogen disappeared tomorrow, hypothetically, right? I would still have a vagina, or you know, my body parts wouldn't just change overnight. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course. No, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But there's also the fact that
like hormones aren't a good measure for sex, because they fluctuate. They're not steady, and you know, they kind of vary from person to person. You know?
Right. Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. They vary, and they fluctuate within range. But we're not talking about within range. We're talking about outside of range.
Or even outside of range, they fluctuate. You know, it's not really like such a big deal if you have. I mean, it's a big deal I mean, it's not like that rare that you have like I remember when I was like younger, I had like really, really low testosterone and really low estrogen, and it wasn't like oh my God, you're stop being feminine. I just had to take hormonal replacements, which is why they have them, and they're pretty common because it is such a common thing to have issues with your hormone levels. Whereas like your body parts are actually, those things don't change unless you have a surgery.
Yeah, but your body parts are not the only things that are objectively used by experts, by doctors, by researchers and scientists to determine biological sex. And also, they're not used at
I
all
mean,
to determine gender.
they're the primary, I would say. They're the primary, like, defining characteristic. I think it's probably,
But
it's the
so,
primary defining characteristic.
but this is something that we have to
And, like, we
discuss.
also, our brains are different. Like, men and women have different brains. Like, they
Oh
work
yeah,
different.
I do know that. And did you know that studies? Now listen, did you know that studies have shown that trans women's brains match those of biological females?
No, I haven't seen that. I don't think
Okay.
that's accurate.
Well, okay. So you don't trust any of the science. What do you trust to tell you?
No, I mean, you say it's the science just because you say it's the science doesn't mean it's science. I mean, I've heard a lot of claims that just don't. I know that one with the brain isn't true because there was a study into it because a lot of people for a while believed that it was and for a while I did too because I had spent a lot of when I was younger when I was like in my teens I was a model and I spent so much time around transsexual people that I thought it seemed to me obvious that just from observation, it seemed to me that it was impossible that they didn't have. I thought of course they have brains of the opposite, the sex that they identify as, because to me, they seemed so, obvious, so female, or the transsexual women that I was around. But when I looked into it, no, that wasn't the case.
And where did you look into it? Because you say you don't trust most science, you don't trust most
I
doctors,
didn't say I
you
don't
don't
trust
trust
them. I said
psychology.
I said I don't blindly trust. I don't blindly trust.
No. I'm asking you, where do you get this information that makes you
I don't
hold
remember.
this position?
I looked into it. I looked into it through like one of the major. I forget which. I looked at one of like the journals, or I looked into some. I forget exactly where I looked at it. It was a while ago that I looked into it, but I did look into it.
So a long time
Like, and
ago,
also like
like years ago.
like I think people get confused like just because like there's like let's say every scientist like just agrees that a treatment it works, right? It's not necessarily the science that's just like the prevailing, like science is very like yes or no. Just because like most scientists agree like that like a certain kind of treatment is ideal doesn't necessarily mean it's science. That could just be there. There's so many different biases that we have that could lead people to saying that. Even like with the flu, we saw that with the epidemic, with the COVID, we saw that a lot of like the assumptions that they made weren't necessarily based on science or weren't
So
necessarily accurate. Because it's possible for people to make mistakes. We're very biased. Our minds aren't very good
oh
at making
yeah.
up. Yeah.
But what I'm hearing you say is that you trust your feelings more than you trust the science.
No, I don't trust my feelings. I trust like measurable things that are like can be proven by evidence. I don't know exactly what the solution for the transsexual thing is, but I mean,
But I
my
just
point
gave you
was,
a bunch of evidence, and you say you don't trust it.
I don't necessarily trust what the modern prevailing treatment recommendation is no, I don't necessarily trust that. Yeah.
I think you don't like it, and that's why you don't trust it.
No, I actually believed it. Like from my interaction with transsexual when I was younger, I came to the same conclusion just because of being around them. It was very difficult for me to believe that they weren't female. Because they just seemed so female, and it seemed to me like there has to be something different about them inside for them, because there's no way this person all these people I hung out around could not be, they can't be men. Like to me, they seem like females on the inside. That's how I rationalized it, because that's what it seemed like to me. Because it just seemed that was the impression I got. But then the more I looked into it, I was wrong. I mean, I don't really think it really matters all that much. But do you want to get back to the discussion? Why do you? Because if you how would you like support something like equality, or like another thing that we get from the Bible is like human rights. Like human rights were first codified into law by the papacy in like the Middle Ages. Like how would you argue for that from an objective or from a rational standpoint if you don't have a Christian philosophical foundation to ground them on?
The Bible gave us slavery. Will, I'm gonna pass this one on to you.
Yeah. So I've been listening to
Let Will speak, please.
reset. You said the Bible does shape United States law. Will you concede that Sumerian laws also shape U.S. law?
Sumerian laws?
Yeah,
I don't know much about Sumerian law.
Yeah, don't steal, don't kill, that kind of thing. All right, now how about the Torah? Does the Torah shape U.S. law? The things that are written in the Torah, does that shape U.S. law?
Parts of it, yeah. Like we get blind justice from the Torah, from Leviticus. Yeah.
Okay.
Parts of it, yeah.
Sure, the Bhagavad Gita has some stuff.
The Torah is in the Bible. So when I say the Bible, I mean the Torah as well. It includes the Torah. Yeah.
Okay. And so the Quran also has some cool stuff in there for society?
Some of it is, yeah. I mean, it depends on it. Some of it does, obviously. Like we didn't include the whole thing. My assertion isn't that like we should just live based on what the Torah says or what the Bible says. I was just saying that the assertion that we shouldn't use the Bible to define the law, and we already do, is kind of silly. And like the thing about like people who look at the Bible don't understand that it's not like nowhere in the Bible the only laws in the Bible that say that they're universal and should apply for all time are like the Ten Commandments. So no, just like like the Torah, the Old Testament laws, they changed quite a few times because they were kind of written to like progress human, like you can't just like say overnight like, be perfect,
So what's your message regarding the Ten Commandments? Are you saying that all 10 commandments should shape U.S. law?
I think no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that no, that's not what I said. I'm saying that when people make the claim that like everything in the Bible has to be good or else it can't shape U.S. law, or that there are problematic things in the Bible because of like the time that it was written around. I'm saying we don't read much like how you don't read a history book to just repeat everything that's in it. We don't read Christians. We don't read the Bible, or Jews too. We don't read the Bible or the Torah to just repeat what's in it. We kind of read it like you would a history book. And there are parts you take from it, and there are parts you don't.
I can agree with that. So you're calling in to say that the Bible has certain bits in it that are great for U.S. law and U.S. society.
I'm saying that like the basis for much of what we consider to be the best parts of U.S. law, like like equality, like human rights, like blind justice. That all that stuff comes from the Bible. It would be irrational to believe in something like it would be irrational to believe in something like I'm trying to think of one. It'd be irrational to believe in something like blind justice if you didn't have like a line in the Leviticus, if you didn't believe in the Bible, because we get that from Leviticus, like you shall not judge a rich man and a poor man. Basically, they say you shall be judged like the same. There shouldn't be a bias one way or the other.
I have a question for
So
you
I'm
though.
just saying it's irrational to kind of, and I'm not saying that we should like go back to. I'm just saying, like, to say that we shouldn't use the Bible to drive our laws when our entire, like, basically our moral code and the way our laws are written are based on Christian ethics. It's kind of silly, I understand the concern over, like, not of like theocracy. I can understand the concern in that, but I mean, our entire common law and all that stuff that comes from the Bible, a lot of it, most of it.
But how do you pick which ones to use? Because you just said, for example, you quoted a couple ones that come from Leviticus, but Leviticus also tells you, how to treat your slaves, and what to do if you punch one of their eyes out, and what happens if you beat them up so bad that they don't die, or that they do die within a few days. How come we're not using those, but we're using other ones?
Slaves back then were like indentured servants. Not that makes it better, but I
No,
mean,
no, 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 no.
included because that also Leviticus condemns slave traders to death. But what was I going to say? But Leviticus, we don't like I said, like those laws. Much of those laws were for those people at that time in that specific area. They weren't like those. Most of the Leviticus laws weren't ever specified where they weren't supposed to be for. They were for like those people at those times who, lived in a very barbaric, world, and it was like basically to slowly transition them to becoming more to learn the difference between good and bad. So those aren't universal, and like some of them are. I think a few of them are.
How do you determine that, though?
Because I told you the 10 Commandments were the only laws that in the Bible that were handed down to humanity that were supposed to be for all time, like universal.
Okay, but then why are we using this rule that you quoted earlier about Adam and Eve and men and women, that there can only be men and women, males and females? Why are we still using those?
I'll read you where it comes. Hang on one second. I'll read you where I got it from. The equality
It does not
thing
come from the
wasn't.
10 Commandments.
This is a speech. It says when Adam. This was given in June 1381. When Adam delved and Eve span, who was then the gentleman? From the beginning of all men by nature were created alike, and our bondage or servitude came in by the unjust oppression of naughty men. For if God would have had any bondsman from the beginning, he would have appointed who would have had any bond and who free. And therefore I exhort you to consider that now the time is come appointed to us by God, in which if ye may, cast off the yoke of bondage and recover liberty. I counsel you therefore well to bethink yourself, and to take good heart unto you, that after the manner of a good husband that tilleth his ground, and riddeth out thereof such evil weeds as choke and destroy the good corn, you may destroy first the great lords of the realm, and after that the judges and lawyers and questmongers and all other who have undertaken to be against the commoners. For so shall you procure peace and surety to yourself in time to come, and by dispatching out of the way the great men, there shall be in equality and liberty, and no difference in degree of nobility, but like dignity and equal authority in all things brought in amongst you. So basically, the guy is saying that, like, when Adam and Eve in the garden, there was equality. There wasn't like a hierarchy. So this is around around the time of the Peasants' Revolt in England. So the guy's saying, like, look, if you look in your Bible, Adam and Eve, there's no hierarchy then. There's no, like, oppression. So that's how we should be treating people. We shouldn't be, like, there's no tyranny back then. There was no that was the result of sin, all that stuff. So basically he's saying equality is what part of God's original perfect design, and that's what we should go back to.
Okay. But then in First Timothy, there is a verse that says, "I do not permit a woman to teach or to assert authority over men. She must be quiet." That doesn't seem like equality between men and women to me.
Yeah, that was written. That was to, I believe that was a letter to a specific. There was like I forget which part of Rome it was, but there was a place in Rome where there was a lot of goddess worship,
but this is still used today to excuse not allowing women to be leaders in church.
No, it was specifically written to a congregation where there was like a cult of Diana, and the cult of Diana had like converted. And this wasn't like a universal Rome. This was a letter specifically written to that specific congregation, and they were having problems because the women were used to being in charge, and so a lot of the women were kind of causing a lot of problems because they weren't used to being. They were used to kind of being like in charge of everything. So that was like a recommendation for that specific. That specific place. And if you look in the Bible, like there's like there were like important like teachers who taught. It was just that was the letters to deal with that specific issue. How those people, because the women who had been like goddess worship and like there's a lot of like. And
but it seems
in ancient Rome, a lot of it had to do with like having sex. It was difficulty they were causing a lot of trouble.
Okay, that's understandable.
That wasn't universal. I'm saying like you kind of have to really look into like you can't just read what it says and then just take it word for word because a lot of it has context and everything like that. But I mean, my point wasn't that we should like go back to theocracy. I'm just saying like
but that's what I'm asking you, because you're giving me, every time I ask you about one, you're like, well, but that was for this specific people and not for today. And only the 10 Commandments. Hold on. I'm still talking. You keep interrupting me a lot, and I need to finish my thought. Okay.
Go ahead.
And so then you're saying, well, the 10 Commandments are the only things that needs to be that can or should be used today. And then when I ask you about another one, no, that was for that specific one. And then you come up with ones that you interpret as being universal and to be used throughout all of the times, forever and ever. How did you determine that? Who tells you that? Because all of the other ones are still being used today. Okay, sorry. I think I was. They might have muted.
10 Commandments. It specifically says in the Bible. I forget exactly where, but it does say in the Bible like that the 10 Commandments were like the only ones that were to be used for like meant to be for all time and everything. I forget exactly where it says that. And then in terms of like the Timothy thing, that wasn't a law. That wasn't like a law from God to anyone. That was just direct, like that was basically someone, he was giving advice. You know what I mean? That wasn't like a law from God. See, like the 10 Commandments came directly. There's only the 10 Commandments are the only laws that were given like from God. He wrote it by his hand on stone. Those are the only ones that were directly from God, like that I'm aware of. I may be wrong about, but without the Torah laws. I'm not saying the Torah laws were very important. I'm not saying they weren't, but like and then like so people giving advice, even if they're him writing a letter to someone and saying do this, that's just writing a letter, just like someone in like the past writing a letter to someone who's having a problem. You're not going to apply that to now if it doesn't apply to now. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, did
I'm
you
not
have
saying
something you were trying to say?
Problematic. I know that can be problematic if you like use the Bible in certain ways, but I'm just saying that in general, it's kind of this line of argumentation kind of falls apart because we already do derive a lot of our laws from the Bible. That's all I wanted to say. I mean, I can understand how it can be problematic if it's just like do whatever the Bible says, and I don't think I ever said that, or I don't even. The people who wrote our laws, common law, didn't believe that either. That's why they only pick certain parts. But I'm just saying it's ahistorical to think that the Bible had no part in shaping our laws in the past.
Oh no, I don't think we were saying that it hasn't. We are saying that it shouldn't in the future, like from here on. Like, why is it? Yeah, hold on. Just because something has been around or has been applied or has been used for a long time doesn't mean that we shouldn't change it. Just because slavery was accepted and
equality and blind justice and liberty
and interrupt them.
Religious tolerance, that we should get rid of all this.
I'm saying that we shouldn't let religion dictate our public law, especially as it relates to the government. I'm sorry. Well, I'm gonna let you say some stuff because.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if you
No, hold on, Melissa, hold on. I was asking Will to speak, not you. Thank you. Let's Will speak.
Yeah, let's just cut to the chase. Melissa, do you believe that the United States is a Christian nation?
I mean, yeah, all our founding fathers said so. Yeah. Yes. I mean, it was. It isn't now, really. Since like 1960, it hasn't been, but it was. Yeah. It was founded to be. It was basically founded to be like a Christian utopia. I mean, those were in like the charters of all of the original colonies.
Whatever influence the Bible, the Christian Bible, had on U.S. laws, in your opinion.
What's that?
Whatever influence the Christian Bible had on U.S. laws, in your opinion, are those unique to Christianity?
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Ouch.
There's no other religion that says like all humans are made in the image of God.
Ouch.
There's no. I mean, that's why it's only Western countries have these kinds of laws because they're majority Christian. It came from the church. Like I said, the papacy was.
Ouch. So I would make the case that the Ten Commandments, except for thou shalt not kill, and maybe thou shalt not steal, all of them are antithetical to the Constitution. Every single one of them. You're not going to read it, but there's a book called The Founding Myth. Every single one except thou shalt not kill, which is not unique to Christianity, and thou shalt not steal. There is a solid argument that says that they are antithetical to the U.S. Constitution. Sorry.
I mean, we don't have the 10 Commandments in our Constitution, though. That's not what I said. I never said that. I said that many of our laws come from the Bible. I never said that the 10 Commandments were our laws. Were those laws? I was just explaining that I was explaining that there's a theological case to oppose a lot of like the more problematic laws because of the Christian beliefs that because a lot of those problematic laws were only like were for a specific time and place. But my point wasn't that the 10 Commandments are our laws.
I would put
my
forth.
point was that our
I would,
laws already are shaped by the Bible. And
yeah,
if you want to like bring up all like the stuff that people like claim to like about our laws, or like the ideal parts, and you kind of have to throw out the whole moral framework of like human life has value, because there's no objective way to claim that.
right. So I would put forth that any influence that you think Christianity has upon U.S. laws is not unique to Christianity. It predates Christianity by thousands of years, and it is just innate humanism that makes a society run. If I'm forming a society, I am not going to Deuteronomy or Leviticus for any advice at all. That's my last thing. I'm sorry, that's just my opinion, and we all have our opinions, obviously. But there is nothing unique about Christianity that says that you can put a stamp on it, says, yep, Christian God, laws, yay.
Yeah. So, Melissa, you said something a moment ago. You say that Christianity is. You say
Society.
that Christianity is the only
I
religion
understand
that says that humans are created in the image of God, but that is not true. The Sumerians say the same thing, and the Sumerians lived before uh, what one would consider, the time that Jesus lived. All right. So the Sumerians were before that, and so their texts are so similar to the Bible. Noah's Ark, Adam and Eve. There's a lot of texts that are extremely similar. So much so that a lot of people think that they were copied from the Sumerians. Now, I don't know whether that's the truth. I'm not a theologist or anything like that, so I don't know exactly whether that's completely accurate. But I do know that in the Enuma, which is the Sumerians' holy books, basically, they say that humans were created in the likeness of gods, and I say gods because they had more than one god at that time. So no, that is not at all unique to Christianity either.
All right, well, I'm gonna let you guys go. Good luck. Have a good evening.
Okay. Well, thank you. I guess there was no more argument there. That was an interesting call. I felt like at times it was more of a preaching than trying to have a conversation. So yeah, I appreciate that the crew at the end, toward the end, started muting a little bit because I was trying to speak or let you speak, but this person was very insistent on speaking over us. So thank you for your patience. Well, thank you so much
Yeah, of
for
course. I get
mentioning
the
that.
feeling that this person is a classic example of with the whole trans conversation you all had. I think it's a classic example of if and when it ever happens to them in their world, they might change their mind. But until that point, they have no concept. It's a lack of empathy. Empathy really is kind of what drives everything I do, and when I see a lack of empathy, it's jarring.
Yeah, I did have a conversation with somebody a while back on this show, and they were very much of the thought that, well, in order to have an understanding or empathy for somebody, then you have to experience that. And I was like, you don't have to. You don't have to, because I'm going to give you an example. I gave them, I was like, no, I've shaved my head for children with cancer before, whereas I'm not close to that situation at all. I do have a child who has medical conditions, but it's not cancer, and it's not anybody close to me that I've experienced that before, and I still do it because it's something that I'm empathetic for, that I have feelings about, and that I try to help as many causes as I can. But I totally do understand that for some people it is that way, unfortunately, and until it is right next to their face, they are not going to change their mind. And it felt a little ironic because I really do think that she started with, well, we shouldn't be respecting their feelings, just however they feel like a woman or whatever, right? But then was, well, I don't trust doctors, and I don't trust psychology, and I don't trust scientists, and so you're trusting your feelings. So you're asking me to respect your feelings but not trust people's feelings. I just think that she didn't like it, and that's why she didn't believe what the experts are saying.
Yeah, I was holding my tongue during that whole time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard for me because in the atheist community, there's so many wonderful trans people that I've gotten to know pretty close up, and it's like whenever somebody messes with them, I feel like this rage, and I want to get at the people. Yeah, um, but anyways, so we are getting close to the time where we have to get ending the show, or at least that you have to head over to your next meeting. But let me see. I did have a question. Okay, here's the thing. I'm just gonna clarify that we are not. That these are our individual opinions, and we're not like endorsing anybody specifically. That secular Houston does endorse candidates, as we were just talking about, who respect secular values. And I did notice that there was a little bit of pushback, or like kind of questioning of why did secular Houston not choose to endorse Jasmine Coquette over James Talarico. And I do understand why. I love James Talarico. So share with us what was your process of like looking at both of them, and what made you be like, hey, we have to endorse Talarico over Coquette?
Yeah. Okay. Easy. That's an easy answer. So we do not endorse anyone unless they return our questionnaire. So Talarico did return our questionnaire, and his answers were chef's kiss. Again, the questionnaire kind of gives us an idea of how they feel about church-state separation, as well as other progressive issues, LGBTQ issues, climate, that kind of thing. So yeah, his answers were chef's kiss, great. Jasmine Crockett did not return our questionnaire. So that's one. And two, Talarico's been on our radar for a couple of years because he's been pushing back on Christian nationalism from his seat in the Texas House in a way that is as good, if not better, than anything that we could come up with. This dude is a unicorn, and so that's the reason why.
I totally agree. Oh my gosh! The first time that I saw a video by him of him was it was before Texas adopted the Ten Commandments bill, and he was pushing so much. I think it was some kind of um, like he was speaking for I don't know if it was an audience or if it was at the Capitol or something like that, right? But I do remember how hard he was pushing back on other people that were there, on other representatives that were speaking for the Ten Commandments bill. And he was like, no, this is something that you do at home. You teach your religious value, your theology, your scripture at home, or you choose what church you go to and you learn about it there and you share about it there with your church community, with your religious community, with your family members, and all of that. And I thought it was outstanding. It was just so amazing. I was so impressed that I started following him.
Yeah.
And a little bit after that, I see another video by him, and he's talking about how he's studying to be a minister. And I was like, is this the same person? Because like I've never seen someone who is so passionate about their religion so far as to go and study to be a minister, who is also pushing so hard against Christian nationalism, and not just that, but are like regular, smaller bills. Like, okay, the Ten Commandments bill, it is kind of big, but it is a state thing, right? It wasn't like a huge national thing. And he was still so passionate about pushing against it and being talking about how that will affect other children who are of different religions, and how that will affect the teachers and how the parents will feel about it and all of that. And I was like, wow, like this is somebody who is impressive. And as much as I want him for Texas, I think he would make an amazing candidate for Democrats for president, So I don't know.
Let me tell you a couple things. Like I've been to enough of his events where he knows me by sight now. Like he knows my face. He knows what I stand for, who I stand for. So I think that's a huge plus. And yeah, he says a lot of religious things, but he, in the same breath, unprompted, he'll include Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs, and atheists, agnostics. Like he, unprompted, I've been to things where there's no cameras. It's just like a fundraiser, and he brings it up on his own. So that, yeah, much respect. I think if he is in the U.S. Senate, he will do right by us, and have confidence that our energies will be well placed with him.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to tell people before you gotta head out in like 2 minutes? What they can do or where they can find you or anything any message you wanted to give people today about all of this?
Yeah, again, we exist to focus your energy and teach you how to focus your energy to affect change and to advocate for church-state separation. So yeah, Secular Houston's my baby, and Secular Texas PAC as well. They're two separate entities, absolutely intertwined, and we're on all the social medias. At least Secular Houston is a website and all the other social medias. Secular Texas PAC just got started, so we are getting out there. And again, any donations that we get goes toward advocating for church-state separation. So it's to this endorsement list, and know that we work hard to be good stewards of any money or energy or time that you put into it. So yeah, if you have a question, you have a specific passion, we can kind of show you where to focus the energy to meet that passion and to put energy into that to affect change, the change that you want to see. So yeah, secularhouston@gmail.com. I'm on all the social medias too, so you can reach out to me. Please be patient with me. I have like in my brain, I have like 3 tabs open, so sometimes I miss things. So please keep me. I'm doing air quotes, but you're not bugging me. But yeah, please keep reaching out. I do want to show you how to be part of this grassroots movement. So yeah, you start doing things. You're one blade of grass, and you think, oh, that's not going to change anything. But you're one blade of grass in a grassroots movement, and that's really how change happens, especially in a place like Texas. Yeah, we need every blade of grass that we can get.
Awesome. And then we put the link in the chat. People can donate to your PAC. And I mean, I always find you at the protests and stuff. We always run into each other. So that's something else people can do. Just go stand out there, bring your sign, and add a number to the pushback. All right, Will, I'm gonna let you go, and thank you so much for coming on the show today. I hope to do something else with you soon. We appreciate you. I'm gonna stick around and finish up the thanking all the people and stuff, but we're gonna let you head out. Thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you all, and I look forward to our next adventures together. Thanks.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Okay. I'm a professional. I can do this. I got this. Okay. All right. So we have. Thank you guys in the chat, everybody. I try to keep up with the chat a little bit when the whole thing was going on, but yeah, it was hard. So I also wanted to thank the Patreons and channel subscribers, and while we get that on screen, I'm going to remind people that next Sunday, this Sunday coming up, the March 1st, I think it is, probably. I don't know. Look at your calendars and tell me what day is next Sunday. All right. You can do it. So at 7 p.m. Central Time, the Skeptic Haven's Let's Talk is coming on. And that's going to be Jim Barrows and yours truly. Again, you're going to see my face again. Sorry about that. And then next week on this show, Critical Call, we are going to have Amber. All right. We are ready to piss off the transphobes. All right. So if you're a transphobe, if you think like this person earlier that was like, being trans is all about feelings and we don't need to respect people's feels, give us a call and let's chat about it. Let's talk about it. We have a good discussion. Talk to a trans person. Get informed. All right. That's what you gotta do. Now, I am going to read. Yeah, that's you, Amber, right there in the chat. And if you want to learn about really awesome stuff, the real science, the real research on trans issues and trans people, go to betterthanamber.com, which was over here earlier somewhere. I don't know where it went. But you can go to betterthanamber.com. And Amber, she has a whole compilation of really awesome resources on her website. You can find all the links to all of her shows and stuff that she does. And you can also support her by buying some of these really freaking awesome flags that she's designing, which is like she uses photos of like NASA photos of space stuff with the different colors of whatever LGBTQ flags that she comes up with. They're like really freaking awesome. You can buy them in stickers, or you can buy like the full size, flag. I think maybe there's like smaller flags. I don't know exactly, but yeah. Anyway, you can do that thing to support Amber and support her also by coming back next Thursday and watching the show. Now I'm gonna thank the YouTube members, which include Kelly Laughlin, Logan Fisher, Cynthia McDonald, and Infidel, Angela. Stop the stupidity for real. Tons of mice. And now, if we can get the Patreons list down there. The Patreons are, thank you, Patreons: Karen Butcher, Logan Fisher, Amanda McLeod, Rion, Dan D. The Bible says, what? Sunny Shell, and Phil Calderone. All right. I comment in the chat, mini flags, how much? I have no idea, but you can ask Amber or go to betterthanamber.com and check it out. And so last Thursday, we did a show. Oh, hey, Chad, Archradish, Super Chat. Finally got to catch one of these lives. Y'all are doing awesome. Thank you, Chad. You're awesome too. And I was talking about you earlier. I wasn't. Yes, I was. Okay. It was good things. Good things. We always say good things about Chad. But anyways, so last Thursday we did this very same show, but with Seth Andrews. And it was a fundraiser because I am raising funds for St. Patrick's, which is a childhood cancer support organization. And what they do is the funds that they raise, they send them to different clinical trials or any kind of research that deals with finding a cure or treatments for childhood cancer. So there is a fundraiser period, and then at the end of the fundraiser, all of the people that signed up shave their heads together. We go to like this Irish pub and drink and shave our heads. So I'm gonna do that on March 8th. I'm gonna do that on March 8th. And I'm gonna drop the link in the chat. So if anybody wants to add some money in there, that would be nice. I am currently at around 350, and I'm trying to make it to 500. So that would be awesome if I could raise 500 by March. Yeah, I can always word sometimes. Anyways, everybody, great conversation today. But that was a very interesting call. I feel like we handled it okay, as well as we could. I see there is a chat thing that says, can you vocal fry word salad? I just did. So there's that. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Come back next week on Thursday, 6:30 p.m. Central. Come back this Sunday, March 1st at 7 p.m. Central, and with me and Jim Barrows on Let's Talk, and we'll have fun. Thank you to all the crew and the call screeners and the audio people that worked really, really, really hard to make this happen today. Let me tell you that. And yeah, the producers, and thank you everybody at Skeptic Haven, and thank you everybody in the chat for hanging out with us. Love you all, and see you next time.
That's our time tonight on Critical Call. To everyone who called in, argued in good faith, and challenged ideas, thank you. This show works because you show up ready to think, to question, and to defend what you believe. If you didn't get through tonight, don't worry. Our lines will be open again next episode at 984-400-5656. So save the number, bring your best argument, and step into the conversation.